Welcome to Memory Matters for All Ages. I'm Janelle Nichols from the Gables of Hudson Assisted Living. And again, I want to welcome back Catherine Kilpatrick to our program. Kathy brings over 40 years experience as a speech-language pathologist, mostly in the area of home health care. Her experience has been invaluable as she has helped families, caregivers, friends, as they walk that journey with someone that they care about who has a diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's. And Kathy herself walked that journey about 10 years ago with her own mother. Kathy, welcome back.
Thanks, Janelle.
I hope everyone that's watching this program is learning as much as I am learning and using from your practical tips.
Thanks so much. You know, the most interesting thing about this career that I've had, which has taken many different twists and turns using stroke patients as my primary source of learning, because I learn from my families. They're constantly teaching me. I'm giving them, you know, wisdom and tips and so forth, but I really, really like doing this. So today we're going to talk about caregiver stress and its impact on memory, because they don't realize that, and I hear those complaints very often from young caregivers as well as older caregivers.
Well, sure. I see a great deal at the assisted living as I work with different families.
Right.
The stress is, as you say, I don't think people realize the stress because we do what we need to do. We love this person. We know what we want to do. We know them. We know how we want to take care of them. I don't think caregivers, family members, friends realize what is happening to them. It's a process that's very subtle. Can you give us some suggestions or tell us why this happens?
Absolutely. And so some of the things I want to share with our audience today, first of all, when you're stressed, cortisol is released. And it's like battery acid to the memory center of your brain. So it's like the executive functioning, thinking part of your brain, to make it very simplistic, is hijacked by the emotional center. And so when you have all of those stress things that are happening, you're on overload, you're worried about your loved one, perhaps you have your own physical or cognitive problems and you are just over the top. So we need to pay attention to that. You know, one day I was driving and I had a call that was very upsetting to me, and I went in to do therapy with a patient, and you know, I've done therapy with people with strokes for a long period of time, so I kind of go on my automatic pilot. But the thing was, there was this tape going on in my head all the time, and we've talked about that with the multitasking sessions that we've done, and that distracted me, so I couldn't give full attention to something. So we need to find some ways to assess, is this going to be an ongoing situation, or do we need to maybe evaluate some strategies and things that we need to have? You know, sometimes I go into a family situation and I can already see the overload, and I will never forget this situation, you know, talking about, you know, family stuff. There's this woman who has her grandchild, about 6 months old, sitting in a little chair on the countertop, and she is just taken into her home, both of her parents, for as long as she can, and they both have Alzheimer's disease. And I'm going like, wow. Oh my goodness, you know, what this is. And so she looked at me and she says, I've got it covered. And I was so impressed. First of all, she has every other weekend off. Someone from the family comes in and takes her place. And then she, her family brings in dinner. They alternate 2 nights a week. And she said the grandchild is like a source of fun for this family. So they are able to kind of enjoy that whole situation. And her parents are enjoying that. And so she had the key to that, which was balance. Here's the thing that I noticed with caregivers. Some people's role has always been caregiving. And so they will often say, oh, I can do this. I did it for my mother and for my father and for my grandmother and for, you know, my husband's family and so forth. And yet the one thing that I try and impress with caregivers is that you do not do a better job by doing it alone. And so we need to kind of look at that bigger picture.
So you're saying you need to be open to accepting help I think that I cannot be the only person out there. I know you're out there that thinks like this, where I'll do it myself. I can do it myself. I know what I want to do. It's easier if I just do it. But I think we don't realize the effect that it's having on us. The other thing with a caregiver that I've seen is that you cannot ignore the emotional piece, because especially with families, you love this person so much, and you also remember how they were. You have couples that have been married 50, 60, 70 years. You remember all of those memories. It's incredible. So the emotional piece has also has to take a toll, where maybe a person doesn't realize it's taking a toll.
Right, and that increases the cortisol.
Right.
And also, what we're going to do is give a few tips now that may be helpful.
I was going to ask you, give us some suggestions.
Okay, and also remembering to tell them that at the end of the program, there's information that they can find. You got to de-stress yourself. 3 things that will help to de-stress or to disperse the cortisol. Number 1 is humor. We don't laugh enough. It's a serious job, so we need to find some things that are uplifting. The other thing we need to do is to consider some sort of break with a meditative activity. So, no, that doesn't mean you have to sit on a rock and go, What you want to do is find the thing that stops the chatter. The chatter is what you have to do, the worry about this, planning, something you forgot to do, and that happens in all of our lives. But it's very important to try and find something like that. Maybe it's reading a book for a little bit or listening to music, not necessarily picking up the phone and talking to a friend. So we need to find something like that. Another thing caregivers really neglect is healthy eating habits. I remember, and I've seen this often, I have clients where the patient has to have like a modified diet, mechanical soft or pureed or thickened liquids, and the caregiver is so busy making sure that their needs are met that they skip breakfast. So, and some people don't eat breakfast, but you need to have that to be able to support yourself in what you're doing. So that's really important. And
I think if I could just interrupt you for a moment. So the physical part is also very important, taking care as a caregiver. And I'm sure rest is a great part of that also.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? And eating right.
Right.
Taking care of your physical body.
And then exercise.
Exercise,
so the other thing is, take 5 minutes and walk up and down the driveway or up and down the steps. I mean, you get enough activity as a caregiver, but sometimes we need to get that oxygen back to our brain. It's very, very important. And one other quick thing I want to mention is we need to be better boundary setters. So people are interrupting all the time, or they're asking things of you. And I think of a situation where I'm sitting with this patient who has a neurological deficit and some dementia, and the wife is saying, I talked to my doctor, I think I have Alzheimer's since I've been taking care of him, and I want some of that medication. And I went like, oh. So then I watched the grandson, who was a college student, come in about 11 o'clock, and we're doing this meal monitor therapy session, and he's giving grandma his order for what he wants for brunch. Now, the family had moved close by to be able to help out. So in a subsequent meeting, I sat down with the daughter and I said, we need to have a little bit of a conversation about helping your mom out and, setting some boundaries, being that gatekeeper in that situation. So that's something that can be really important.
So in other words, you're saying learn how to say no.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm not good at that either, I'm afraid. I've worked with a number of families in the assisted living realm, and I haven't walked through it personally as you have, but observing families, every family's different, every family has their own personality and their own makeup. I remember one wife, this was many years ago, moved her husband into our other residence. And it was a huge decision for her. There were a lot of guilt feelings involved. She felt that she could take care of him, she could do it. But when she finally made the decision to move her husband into our dementia wing there, she disappeared for 3 days. And we were stunned. We thought, well, she seemed like such a loving, caring wife. We were stunned. We didn't know if she took off for Florida or where she went. Well, when she finally showed back up on that 4th day, she told us she had been sleeping for 3 days. So literally.
Taking care of herself.
She was absolutely exhausted.
Very good.
All right, well, Kathy, thank you so much, and I want to wrap it up here. We just have a couple minutes. As usual, one of my favorite things about you is that you always give us some meat to take with us, something very practical. But before I give that to you to talk about, I do want to remind everybody listening, watch at the end of this program, and you'll see the website, Kathy's website, information on her blog, where you can get more information about today's topic. All right, Kathy, give us something for the week that we can take with us.
Okay, we need to tie it up. Look back at a time when you were stressed. Everybody's had one of those situations. How did you take care of yourself? How well were you doing with that? Were you sleeping, exercising, drinking enough water to stay hydrated? With our new mugs, Memory Matters, we're so excited. Have a plan now if you're not in a stress mode, knowing that, okay, I need to make sure that I eat that healthy breakfast, or I need to make sure that I set these boundaries, or put my answering machine on. You know, think about it ahead of time before you really need to do something. I remember one caregiver saying that she didn't want anybody in the home to help out. She was afraid to leave her husband. And so my suggestion was bring in someone, let them do that, but then you can go in the other room. You can take a nap. You can pay bills or whatever that might be. So there's some tips, and I'd like to end with a quote, as I always do. Mother Teresa, you cannot go wrong. Kind words can be short and easy to speak, but their echoes are truly endless.
Very good. Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you all for listening today, for joining us. Again, watch at the end of this program for more information. Now, go make it a great day.